Why have I quit my job? Why have I, bought a van? And why am I going to drive around the country? Well, I'm passionate about the idea that you need to be heard. And I want to stitch these stories together across the states. We're going to find the commonalities. And it's going to be really an amazing experience. And I look forward to you joining me on the Jar. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Mental Health Today. I'm Ken Stearns. I'm the host. And I've got our guest today, Sue Bowles. Going to be kind of fun to chat with Sue. First, real quick, the Mental Health Today, this is sponsored by the Jar Foundation. And the purpose of the Jar Foundation, and really ultimately kind of together with the podcast, is to bring to light and have conversations about mental health. And then definitely this podcast is to bring people who've been on a journey or are who in the space professionally, or, potentially finance people in the space, or providers, kind of retail providers, clinics. We've had some of those on. And then a lot of the innovative things. We just had somebody on. We've had on ketamine people. We've had on musicologist yesterday, Jed. I'm going to forget his name. But musicology, talking about music and how music affects the brain in a positive way. There's just so much going on in the mental health space. Super exciting. And I'm glad to have a chance to talk with people and also hear the personal stories, which are the motivation behind what people are doing. Sue, nice to have you. Good to see you. Sue is an old guest from the Jar. Not an old guest, but a guest from the Jar, and from some time ago, early on in my days when I was just a young pup, running around with my Jar. Crazy idea, and here we are a year later. Sue, thanks for being a guest, and I think it's a great format for you to share your story. Fire away.
Sure. Well, and I appreciate you having me on again, because mental health is certainly what's on my heart, because I've had a lot of mental health issues in my story, in my past. I'm a childhood trauma survivor, have battled with depression and anxiety and suicidal thoughts and all those things. But, it's not so much about my story as much as it is about what I now do with my story to help others. I mean, my business name is My Step Ahead, and the whole concept is you only have to be a step ahead to help the person behind you. While I may still be reaching out for help and support with things I have going on, I can still reach back and help somebody else who's maybe a step or two behind me. I've seen that experience. I've experienced that a number of times, even the last couple of years, as I've lost both my parents. It seems like shortly thereafter, while I'm still trying to figure out where I just landed, someone else loses a parent, and I'm able to help them. There was one time a coworker tragically lost her father on Easter and went out to the house the next day. And by the end of the hour visit, she was asking me, we're going to the funeral home today. What do we do? What will they do? What do I bring? What about
Oh
this? What about
man,
that? I had only gone through it 6 months prior with my mom, and I certainly didn't have it all figured out. But that's what everything's about now, is using my story, my experiences, and being able to help somebody else.
That's beautiful. I think. What programs are you involved in? What kind of things are you doing around getting the story out, and how are you sharing it?
Yeah, any number of ways. I have done a lot of podcasts. I was on over 100 podcasts in 2 years.
That's
So
crazy.
doing that, I do a lot of speaking. I'm a master certified life coach. I'm a mental health coach. So I'm able to be involved in the space one-on-one with people. There's a nonprofit organization near me called Healing Our Warriors, which is a 1-day intensive to help people understand where some of their stress and anxiety, et cetera, comes from and how to better deal with it. And I come behind them with a month of follow-up coaching for the participants. I do a lot of speaking. I've done not just podcasts. I've got a conference in South Carolina here in a month called the Association for Christians and Student Development, where all 3 of my proposals were accepted. So I'm presenting I'm speaking 3 times, presenting 3 different workshops
Whoa.
there. In the
Whoa.
fall, yeah, I did it last year. I had one accepted. I spoke on eating disorders, and that led to an opportunity to speak to a university up in Minnesota with their counseling and health services staff about
Hmm.
eating disorders. So anywhere and everywhere I get a chance to speak, I want to, because I have a responsibility, because I've been through some stuff and I can help somebody else.
Yeah, I think maybe I think it's worth we got, because you're articulate. Let's go through some of the timeline. Maybe just share, I think, share with people a little bit of your journey, and I think maybe highlight those spots where, I I think one of the things I like to do in the show, a way for especially people like yourself through the journey is what can we do better? So maybe kind of
Mhm.
those as you went through things, what was your interaction with with the mental health services? What was that like? What's your takeaway, and how are you kind of using that now?
Sure. And just to give a quick little snippet, yeah, I'm a childhood rape survivor. I was raped by a classmate when I was 7, and I didn't tell anyone until my senior year of college. So there were 15 years of secrecy there, which trauma rewires your
Mm.
brain. It's scientifically proven. So then by the time you go through junior high, high school, and college, I was really screwed up. And
Yeah, I mean, you're suppressing something pretty powerful that needs to be
yeah.
worked out.
Yeah, and there were a number of other things. I developed an eating disorder. I mentioned before, I've considered ending my life twice. So many different things, depression, anxiety, just all kinds of things. But what really made the difference for me, it started with, was my dean of students in college, because he just took time to listen. And he
Mm.
knew he
I
had a
remember
screwed
this
up kid in
story.
his office, and not planned at all. I didn't even know the secret wanted to come out, but I ended up telling Ed, my friend Ed. He was the first person I told a couple months before I graduated high school. So I graduated college. So that was my first real experience of someone caring enough to listen. And that's one of the things I speak about when I'm out there,
She's
is that you don't have to be an expert to make a difference, because
Yeah,
there are things we can do, that it started with the one-on-one. It started with someone who, no matter how many hours I needed to talk, we would talk 2 hours at a time, and he would just listen. This is the dean of students of a college, and setting aside
he's got
time.
better stuff to do, right? Like,
Well,
quote
yeah, but
quote unquote, he should have
yeah,
something
quote
to do.
unquote, yeah. Yeah, and then the year that I told him, he had moved up to vice president for advancement. He certainly had bigger things to do. And yet he made a point of telling me when I first got back to campus senior year, he would still be available to me. So speaking those things very specifically to somebody make a huge difference, because when
Man.
we've got stuff going on in our mind, our self-talk is all whacked out. We cannot trust what we're telling ourselves.
Mm.
And what we're telling ourselves is that we're a burden, we're too screwed up, I don't matter, nobody cares. And so someone
Oof.
who will come along and verbalize the exact
Right, the
opposite of what
opposite.
we're telling ourselves balances that scale. And then when they live it out, that makes an even bigger difference. So, yes, while there are mental health professionals, at the same time, every single person can care.
Mm.
And it starts just by being a friend. Now, when I got more involved in counseling,
Yes.
I saw a couple different counselors, but the one that I'm with, we just celebrated 15 years, believe it or not. And I say that without any shame, because there's nothing wrong with having a counselor. There
That's
really
great,
isn't.
15, yeah.
Yeah, and because she has helped me see things that I didn't know were there. She is also the person that I finally dealt with the rape with over 4 decades after it happened. I had not dealt with it. She was the one that also helped me see my eating disorder and helped me get in recovery from my eating disorder. She's
Mm.
also the one that helped me deal with when my mom passed 2.5 years ago, and my dad just 4 months ago. So,
Oh, your dad
sh
did pass.
yeah, he did, 2 days after Christmas. So the last 4 months have been, pretty rough. Just in the last week, there's been some more sunshine, which is good. But yeah, it's been a journey. And so there's nothing wrong with having a counselor, is my point. And
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
and within that, being honest and open is the big thing. The counselor can ask you any question in the sun, but if you aren't willing to do the work, you're wasting your money and you're wasting your time. and in your counselor's time. Because I firmly believe if you've gone so far as to pick up the phone, make an appointment, and then show up,
Mm,
then you're hanging on to a glimmer of hope. And that counselor is there to help fan that into a flame. You're equal partners in it, and you're a team. And that is one of the biggest things that can
mm.
happen in a counseling office is that seeing it that way. For the longest time, I saw Amanda as the one driving the boat because I didn't have the strength to. And she told me, she said, I'll drive it for a while, but in time you will be. And at first I'm like, I don't want to drive this boat because it's going to crash. And now I'm like, that's great. I'm loving every minute of it. Look what I'm doing now. If you had told me eight,
Yes,
10
yeah.
years ago that I'd be doing now what I'm doing, I would have laughed you off the face of the earth because I didn't believe I mattered. I didn't believe I mattered, had anything
Mm.
to I didn't believe. I just didn't believe because that self-talk I was talking about.
Oh, yeah. Self-talk is brutal, especially
Mhm,
when you're dealing. I think when you've got trauma is the one
mhm.
is the voice driving it,
Yep,
and
very much so.
especially something that's shameful,
Mhm,
like, right, again, air quotes, right? That's shameful, right? That you would
right,
be ashamed to talk to somebody about,
mhm,
right? Or you'd be
right,
shy at very not shy, you'd be shameful. And
mhm,
like you said, people somehow victims or even the aggressor turns it into it's your fault.
mhm,
And and that's probably the most brutal, the most evil part of the whole thing, not owning it, and putting it on the victim.
and that was one of the hardest pieces of homework my counselor ever gave me, which
Really, it was that
yes,
piece.
it
Yes.
was it was 10 times a day for a week. Look myself in the mirror with my eyes open and
Yes.
say out loud, "The rape was not my fault." And it started out as, "The rape is not my fault. The rape is not my fault," and just very dispassionate. And then after about a day or 2, I found myself kinda starting to believe that might be true. And then suddenly it became yeah,
It I
and
mean, it's
then
crazy to think,
it
but it's that
is.
many years. It's 40 years.
Yeah. You
You
got a little
gotta
bit of
l
dirt to dig
there's some
through.
dirt. You gotta scrape some
Yeah,
layers off.
yeah, and then it became the rape was not my fault. The rape was not my fault. The rape
Yes.
was not my fault, and I put an emphasis on
Interesting.
each different word, and that
Yeah.
made a huge difference. Now, of course, the next week, she asked how it went, and I told her, and she said, "Well, say it to me," and she had me say it about 3 times. First, I'm like, "Oh, man, come on, Amanda,
It's
really?"
so embarrassing. Yeah,
It
like,
is,
really?
but but it was so pivotal because then I started to believe the truth.
It
I
was
finally
yeah.
got the story straight.
Yeah, you were saying it to another person.
Mhm.
It's a challenge, right? They could challenge
Oh,
it.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, very
It
interesting.
was powerful. It was really powerful and very freeing. Highly uncomfortable, but very freeing.
Yeah, and I think this is what, people talk about putting in the work.
Mhm.
This is when you've got to face those uncomfortable things
Yeah.
and do them and dig it up. It's kind of interesting because it is. I could see not the pain of bringing it up, the pain of revisiting it.
Mhm.
I'd rather just put it in the box. I could totally see
Mhm.
that. I mean, that's why I could see why people go
Mhm.
for many, many
Right.
years.
Right.
I mean, when you're younger, it's confusion, not
Mhm.
knowing. And at some point, then you're making, I guess, the decision whether or not I'm brave enough or strong enough to
Right.
pull it out. Oof, it's kind of complex human
Mhm.
stuff.
But here's the thing to is that if you put it in a box, it's going to boil up and it's gonna start oozing out. There's a wonderful book out there called The Body Keeps the Score. It's a
Yeah,
scary book to read. But it shares the science of how the body stores trauma, unresolved trauma, and stress, and depression, and anxiety, and it will come out in any number of ways. One of the big ways for me was not just the self-talk, but was the eating disorder.
yeah, the eating, yeah.
It comes out in different ways, but it will come out, and the only way to healing is to go through it, through the mountain. You
Mm.
can't go around it, and it's not for the faint of heart. And it is not a journey to be taken alone.
I do like that. Yeah, the partnership approach is kind of cool. Very interesting, right? You need a
Mhm,
part. It's a part. I
mhm,
think if you've got a partner, it seems a lot. It seems more doable.
mhm.
Yeah.
because you have somebody who's believing in you. There was a conference I'm involved with, a ministry called Grace Story Ministries out of Cincinnati, Ohio, and at their women's conference each November, with it, one of the coordinator of the leader of it used a comment last year saying that her counselor held on to hope when she wasn't strong enough to hold it for herself. And that is the power of counseling, is
Mm,
that someone is holding on to hope for you when you can't see it for yourself.
brutal. The idea of the peer, the peer stuff that you talked about earlier about, you don't have to be a counselor.
Mhm,
um, I mean, that was the way we did things, right? I
mhm,
think grief was, people knew they knew their process. The grandmas came around, they took over, they knew what was going
mhm,
on,
mhm.
and people guided you through. You weren't alone. You were
Right.
never alone making those decisions.
Mhm,
You had family around, and I think it's tough now because people are by themselves and often don't have. They are the last one and the first one,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
They're the only one and the last one and the first. So they have to
Right.
bury their parents, but there's no
Mhm.
one around to show them how to do it. Um,
Right. Right.
so it's a changing part of society, and so we do need friends
Mhm.
around to kind of help through those moments.
Right.
Yeah,
Very much so. Very much so.
I'm going to put up. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, um, yeah. For me, one of the organizations that I'm involved with, where my friends are, my tribe, is the Walking Stick Retreats. It's a Christian retreat community.
Hmm.
Do a retreat twice a year. We just had our retreat 2 weeks
Okay.
ago, and we have the next one in September in Tennessee. And those people have walked with me through so much. They were the place. They became the safe place where I could finally face my story, because
Really?
when I went to the first retreat in 2014, it's the year that I was dealing with the rape. My eating disorder was coming back and I was imploding and I was not healthy. And I went there, and it was the first time I had publicly shared my story. They put together a Facebook group for the people just going to retreat. The first year we were all strangers, and they asked us to be bold and courageous and share our story. Now I lurked in the room about 4 days, and I was encouraging others, but I was trying to really kind of stay in the background. And then
You're
it,
like
it, it
putting
didn't
people
work.
on stage so you didn't have to go up?
Yeah, kind of like keep trying to keep it in that box we talked about.
Absolutely. If I
And
just get other people to talk, I
right.
don't have to open it up.
Exactly. And then I woke up one morning and the heart's pounding. You start getting a little sweaty. It's like, oh, it's my turn, man.
I know it's
And
my turn. It's my turn.
I spent a half hour out at dining room table typing out my story, hit post, and literally, Ken, all day long, I was watching Facebook, waiting for someone to trash me, because it's all I had ever known was it was my fault. We are now 8.5 years since, and I have yet to have one comment negative. Instead, it was, "You're so courageous. You give me hope, encouragement to share my story. You're so strong. I want to hug you. I can't wait to meet you." And I was like, "Holy cow!" And then through that, each year, I'm a Christ follower. Each year, God did more and more in my heart through those people at the retreat. There's nothing magic about the retreat. They get out of the way of the Holy Spirit and let Him do His job. But through that, and I talk about it in my book. I ended up writing a book. It's called "This Much I Know: The Space Between." It's on Amazon and Kindle. And the second half of the book is my story, the healing journey that God took me on. And the first step of that path to humility is owning your story. And I did that for the first time. And then each step grew from there. And now this banner that Ken
Hmm.
has up says "Dare to Believe Movement." That is our newest
Yeah,
adventure, I
what's
guess.
going on?
I am the chief instigator behind the Dare to Believe movement, and it's done. It was launched last November by my Step Ahead, my company, and it is an international movement to dare people to believe that they matter. When I am coaching, when I'm speaking, when I'm out in public at conferences, wherever, when people are talking with me, Ken, I hear an underwriting current of doubt. Do
Hmm.
I really matter? Do I
Hmm.
really make a difference? Can I make a difference? Is it too late for me? And I've summed that up to people are wondering if they matter. So
I love that.
the Dare to Believe movement is daring you to believe that you matter. because I am convinced, I have become convinced of this in my interactions with people, is that until that question is solidified and answered and becomes a bedrock that you are going to build on, permanent life change is not going to happen, because then you're going to
Mm.
be on shifting sands. And oh, I only matter here, but I don't matter here. And then it gets back to that
Um,
self-talk. But until you can answer that question in the affirmative, solid
mm,
bedrock, I believe I matter. That actually became the turning point for me. It was the third year
interesting.
at retreat. It was the third year at the retreat. And my nugget that I walked away with is that I am valuable. I matter. So all this 8 years has been in the building to launch Dare to Believe movement. And you can go to that website, daretobelievemovement.com, sign up for the updates, and then there's a PDF called The First 4 Steps to Healing, and that'll come in your mailbox right away. We're about ready to upload a bunch of different information on there, a lot of different stuff, because the concept is I dare you. When someone
Yeah,
dares
very.
you,
It's such a fun. It's such a
it,
clever idea.
well, and when someone dares you, they're challenging you to do something outside of your comfort zone because
Yes.
they see something in you that you can't yet see for yourself. So I am daring every listener and viewer right now, first of all, to go to that website and sign up for the updates. But I dare you to believe that you matter,
Yeah. Very
because you
cool.
do. You may not believe it yet. That's why it's a dare. And I dare you to join us on the adventure. We're going to put up a bunch of content about what's it mean to dare, what goes behind, why are we fearful? What's the fear? What are the things that hold us back? How
Mm.
can we develop courage? What about boundaries? What about communication skills? Because daring to believe that we matter comes into every aspect of our life. It comes into that conversation when you want to draw a boundary because someone's manipulating you and you're not sure how, and then you seethe on the inside because you want to say something and you don't believe you can.
Ooh.
There's real boots on the ground stuff here. But I'm convinced that that has to happen before permanent life change can happen.
Yeah. I can imagine this would be a great little cards to have to hand out to people. Right. This is like
You
a
just gave me an idea.
I,
I already have stickers, but I'm gonna get
yeah.
cards made now
No, I
too.
think handing a card to somebody and
Hmm.
saying you matter.
Hmm.
You
I like
make a
that.
difference. You matter, and to be able to hand those out, and it'd be cool if you had people all around the country kind of handing them out
Oh, I
to,
like that.
to different people. Just carry a couple around and put
I
them in
like
your
that.
purse or put them in your
I
pocket,
like
and
that.
you meet someone interesting, and or you need or someone that looks down like they're not they don't, like you said, they don't look like they're as excited about life as they could be.
Hmm. Hmm.
There's probably the card would
I like
crush it. It
that.
would crush them because
Oh, I
you'd
like
be.
that a lot. I might have to get some made and put it up on the website and say, send me your address. I'll send 10 to you.
Yeah, I mean, how
I
fun
like
is
that.
that? Just send them,
Oh yeah, I like that. I like that idea a whole lot.
I mean, I've enjoyed because I have the jar card.
Hmm.
I have a cards. My business cards have the question on one side,
Mm.
and I often meet people like just today. I got towels from the lady, the cleaning lady, and the and as I got towels from her. So we had a really nice interaction,
Hmm.
and I went back to my room and I got my cards and came back and gave her a card. Fanned these cards out and said, "How about a question of the day? Thank you,
That's
thanks for taking care of me. How about a question of the day?" And she got the question, she looked at it, she smiled, and she's like, "Thank you." It's
hmm.
that
Hmm.
moment of she felt it wasn't just a transaction, but it was a
Right.
human moment between us
Right.
where I was borrowing the towels from her and she's helping me
Hmm.
out
Hmm.
and recognize her as a real person and thank you.
Right.
And
One of
you
my
matter.
favorite One of my favorite questions, and I especially ask it at the grocery store or a clerk or whatever, what's been the best part of your day so far? And people are
Oh,
like, oh,
oh, they have to
oh,
absolutely look up,
oh
right?
yeah,
You're like,
they're like,
I,
what? Oh, wow.
I
What was my best part? And you know what the person told me today at the grocery store when I said? She said, somebody just gave me a $10 tip. I said,
oh,
everyone is encouraged when they know that they matter
I, and that's, I mean, nothing says I appreciate you
and that
more
they're
than
appreciated.
10
Yeah.
bucks, 10 bucks in
Yeah.
your hand when you're working
Right.
at probably $10 an hour,
Right.
right? Somebody hands you
Right.
that, you're like, okay,
Yeah.
very funny.
Yeah.
Well, I really do. This is a great, I think this is a great idea that you've got. and you just started launching it.
Mhm.
Very cool. And are you doing your speeches around this? Is this a kind of what your speech is going to start moving to?
I've already started. I've done a couple online summits so far this year, and actually, the first one had this topic. The one
Yeah.
I'm doing here in a couple weeks has this topic as well. It's also one of the presentations I'm doing at the national conference I'm speaking at in June, and been talking about. I did a podcast recording earlier this week as well. Was talking about it. So yeah, this is where everything's moving to because it's pivotal. It is pivotal. It ties into My Step Ahead. That's why My
It's
Step Ahead launched it. It ties
yeah.
into the power of our stories because
Yeah, and it's
we can own our stories and that's good. But I believe that our stories can then help others. And that's where the Dare to Believe movement comes in. Because when you believe that your
mm,
story matters and you matter, then you want to help somebody else. The
yeah, I
it,
think it's a good evolution from your story. This is a very good evolution.
it's been fun. And I had a lot of conversations with some people last year before I launched it. It's kind of say, this is my idea. What do you think? And so I
Mm.
kind of have a few sounding boards because I have a very big vision for this. The first step is the website. With dad passing, this next timeline has been backed out some, but the next step is going to be to launch an online community where it's safe to dare, where it's safe
Ooh.
to struggle, where it's safe to um, help each other out, and where it's safe to try to experience new things. So that's next. Over time, conferences. I mean, this is a big vision. This isn't going away.
Oh,
We're
I
this
like the
is
idea
this
of
is
for conferences, bring people
yeah.
together and
hmm hmm
yeah.
Yep. Yep. So one step at a time. Like I said, the timeline's been adjusted a little bit with everything that's been happening in the personal life of dad passing and things that go with that. But um, you know, we got the vision and one step at a time. So first step is continue to talk about it and get the word out there.
Yes.
I'm a vendor at a conference this weekend. I'm going to have Dare to Believe stuff there. As a vendor, it is a men's conference this weekend. The Grace Story Ministries out of Chicago, out of Cincinnati. They have the women's conference in November. I'll be there. I'll have Dare to Believe stuff there. So they've got some local stuff here in town. So basically, wherever I go, this is it because it's pivotal enough in every life that it has to get out there.
Mm. Well, it's going to be exciting to get feedback, right? I
Mhm,
think, because you have, like you said, you had a lot of sounding boards and
mhm,
framing it before you launch it, and then
mhm.
you've launched it. And now, just like for me, you shared the idea with me, and instantly I'm like, oh yeah, you need cards.
I love that idea.
You need to, you need to give that to people and raise their spirits just
Mhm.
randomly.
I like that.
That like just print as many of those cards as you can afford, and
Yep.
maybe ask people to buy them. Maybe ask some of your speaking clients to buy a box and to
Mm.
pass them around and give them out
Ah, that's a
to
good idea.
um,
That's a great idea.
put it in your speaking contract that
There you go.
you have to buy a box and you have to pass them around. And they'll be like, "That's the dumbest thing in your contract." We're like, "Yeah, but it may look,
That's
but
it.
it might be the smartest
Mhm.
thing. It's more
Right,
about
right.
it might be the dumbest thing in there. You might look at that, but it might be it's the thing that'll spread it around."
I might have to hire you as my manager.
I'm just so crazy. I just got a ton of ideas,
Love it.
on random and randomness. Um, Sometimes they're good. Mostly they're shite. But every once and mostly I don't have to do them, so they're all good to
There you
me.
go.
At work, that was my favorite thing. I had a lot of ideas. I didn't have to implement anything.
There you go.
Um, Fantastic share. How about some closing thoughts? We're right at the time, and
Alright.
maybe get some articulation about what you want to leave the audience with.
Yeah. I think first and foremost, dare to believe you matter.
Hmm.
Your story matters. No matter what has happened, and you've heard just a snippet of mine, I've been through some real stuff,
Hmm.
and I don't say this lightly. No matter what has happened in your life or to you, first of all, it's not your fault.
Yeah.
Second of all, you matter and you are worth every second and every effort it takes to find healing.
Mm.
And whatever I can do to help you on your path, I would be honored to walk that path with you, be it through the Dare to Believe movement. I'm a master certified life coach. If there's something I could potentially help you with that, reach out to me through the same website. Even if it's just resources, whatever
Mm.
I can do, because I believe that you matter. I haven't met you. That doesn't matter. What
Yeah,
matters is that
I
you
know.
matter. That's my parting thought.
Mm.
That's my parting wish, is that people would take the next step in their journey. If they want to get in touch with me, then go to the website,
Yep.
contact information there, then get the book there and everything like that. But I want them to know that I believe in you,
Mm.
and I believe you have something worthwhile to share with the world.
Thanks, Sue. And that's definitely worthwhile. What you've shared is definitely something I think we want to get as many people as we can to know about and
Mhm.
to engage. It's a
Right.
great, just so clever, so clever. And I think I just find it so interesting in all the conversations about, especially people that have been on the journey, is how weird that somehow it shapes their journey and shapes their
Mhm.
purpose.
Mhm.
And people really do, once they look inward, once they do the work and they come out of it, everybody's got such a strong commitment, such a strong passion around what they're doing and what they're committed to do. And I think it's great. You're really, I've got a lot mad respect for you. So what you've
Oh, I
done
appreciate it.
with your life story and where you're taking it, and super excited to follow the Dare to Believe movement.
I appreciate it.
I love it. When you get the cards, when you're designing the cards, send me some copies. I'll
I
have
will
some
do that.
thoughts.
I will
I'll
do
have
that.
some thoughts. Okay, let's see. All right, I'm going to bust this out a commercial. Thanks everybody for listening. Thanks for anybody watching. Really do appreciate all the support around this mental health. We're in a crisis
Mhm.
certainly globally, um, and I think this is an opportunity for us to start to look at what solutions are out there. How can we help address it in our own little way? Sue's idea today. You don't have to be that far ahead of somebody else to help out. I kind of talk about the analogy of being in the dark tunnel, reaching out your arms, spreading your fingers. You will find somebody else.
Mhm.
We're all in the tunnel, somewhere in the tunnel, right? Or the tunnel's filled with people. Just reach out and find someone to touch and to get some support from.
Mhm.
Until next time, which is probably tomorrow or the next day. Peace out, people.
Yeah, loose, baby.
But we're about to go and make this vessel with these great professionals in public glass. We're not part of the community, but we're from the outer family of glass blowing. Yeah, we're gonna go make a magical giant jar with optic lenses so that if you turn it, it changes all the time. So if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.